What is going on, everybody? It is Jackson, Chase, and Andrew from Dinger Dudes, and welcome to another episode. We're also joined by a friend of us from Wolf Sports Network, Michael Miller. Michael, how's your day going? And by the way, how's everybody's days going?
I'm
Mike,
doing good. I'm the rest of you.
I was just gonna say, he's back. He's back. That's all I gotta say, boys, is he's back.
He is
But
back.
we still, we're still not winning games, but he is back.
Hey man, look, we gotta take this one step at a time. It's just well, I know we're gonna get into it later, so I'm not gonna go on a whole rant. But inconsistency is just is the number one thing. Pitching and hitting can't be on the same time. But we're getting missing pieces back, so we gotta take this a day at a time. Count our blessings, count your wins, and
Look,
get ready for this big Philly series.
we got Acuna. See, we DFA'd Orlando Arcia to make room for Acuna. We should DFA Iglesias, if I'm being honest. But
Yeah, hey.
I'm not double A. I'm not double A. But
What is
that would have been my
wild to
call.
me is me and Steven, who is not on the episode for family reasons.
It's not family
He
reasons.
said he told me.
He's watching sweaty men wrestle with each other. Ain't no
Hey,
family
Steven.
reasons.
Hey, Steven. That's something I wouldn't be able to resist myself.
Okay.
That's wild. He said that Raisel Iglesias was a better reliever, a better closer than Ryan Helsley, which is 100% not true.
Hang on,
Helsley
wait,
was the
hang on.
best reliever in the
To be
National League
fair,
last season.
Wait,
And
wait. Hey, no. Wait. Second half of the season, Iglesias was the best closing pitcher in the entire league. I'm talking about post All-Star break. But if you want, Steven said this before Iglesias started struggling, and coming into this year, every Braves fans were reasonably excited about Iglesias because he was fantastic for the Braves. And I'm telling you, after All-Star break, compare him to any closer in the league, he was better.
but look at this year now. I mean, even Brian Sticker talked about it after Friday's game when he gave up a solo home run to Manny Machado, which lost us the game.
oh
Brian
yeah.
Sticker has just completely talked about taking the slider out of his arsenal, and the slider was his best pitch last year. So to me, that's a sign right there of a declining pitcher, and you got to do something about it. You got to do something about it. But
My answer is
So
either Craig Kimbrell or let Pierce Johnson close.
yeah,
so would y'all say that last year's Raisel Iglesias in the second half was hot? Was on a hot streak?
he
Oh,
was Fuego,
and
absolutely.
He was
that is not
fuego?
a hot take. And that is not a hot take.
Oh, but we are going to get into some hot takes that were sent in from some of the viewers here at Dinger Dudes. And I want to start with our friends over at Joba in the Mouth. By the way, go follow their Instagram. 2009 World Series champion Joba Chamberlain and Errol Marks. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Guys over there, fantastic. He said Dodgers won't have the best record in the National League by the end of the season. What are y'all's thoughts?
How about we let Michael start with this one? Michael, what do you
Yeah,
think?
I agree.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I don't. I mean, like the way the Phillies are playing right now. Obviously, they're on fire. I know they lost
Yep.
Mhm.
today, but they had what 9, 10 game win streak going until today.
Mhm.
They're playing really well. The Dodgers obviously are going to be consistent all the way through. But I don't hate that at all. I mean, you have the Phillies, the Mets are playing like they've just been all three of them been playing extremely good baseball the whole year. Phillies are hot right now.
Mhm.
If I had to like predict right now, I would say the Dodgers will finish with the best record in the NL, but I don't hate that at all.
I personally think that the Dodgers too will finish with the best record. Wait, I'm sorry, was it NL or entire league?
Nationally.
Okay, so a National League. But I will say this: I don't think it's a hot take because I think it'll be close. Like Michael said, I think the Phillies, the way they're playing right now, I think they're set to. I think honestly the Phillies will win the NL East, but I think they're set for a 100+ season win.
Mm.
100+ win season, and I think that could compete with the LA Dodgers. So I don't think it's a hot take.
Well, guys, let's take a look at the other team in the National League that has the same exact record as them right now, both standing at 32 and 21. You got the
Hmm.
Chicago Cubs right now. I mean, they are
Yep.
taking full control of that NL Central, which I thought was going to be a little
Full
more
control is
competitive.
insane. We're only like a game behind them, a game and a half
Okay,
behind.
okay,
Also,
okay.
Cincinnati's red hot right now. So I like the way Cincinnati's playing right now.
Okay, well, let me take it back. Not full control, but I mean, you got to look at the players that are on the rise right now. I mean, Pete Crow Armstrong, that's a future MVP in my opinion. And it's also, since we're talking about Pete Crow Armstrong, funny to mention that the Mets, if you remember, traded him away for a guy that they only used for 47 games before he got DFA'd. So that trade is looking like an absolute fleece right now. But anyways, going back on it, I guess the only way you can really tell is if the Dodgers are going to get outthrown in the National League is if any other team can live up to the same caliber of a pitching rotation that they have right now. And I don't know if the Cubs had that. I mean, Brad Keller's been playing very well. Um,
Hmm.
who's the other guy? I think Drew Pomeranz is how you say his name. He's had a
Pomeranz,
couple
yeah.
of good. Yeah, he's had a couple good outings. But I mean, like to me, they had the hitters to compete with LA, which might sound crazy to say, but Kyle Tucker has really hit a stride. Justin Turner, funny enough, has been a great designated hitter for Chicago. He's come up in several clutch situations for that team right now, and Michael Bush is really good as well. So I like that
Okay.
Cubs team a lot.
All I got to say about this hot take is, I was really high on the Padres before they went on a massive like losing streak. Again, you said the Phillies. Bryce, I want to point out a guy, Bryce Harper. Ever since he shaved that head, like he's been lights out. He's been looking like the best first baseman in all of the MLB. Um, as of right now, in that Phillies rotation, Jesus Luzardo has looked fantastic. I know I put a lot of hate on him in a couple episodes
Luzardo,
ago.
he's been he's
Rightfully
been the
so.
best guy in the rotation this year for the Phillies.
Yeah, the guy who's been awful for the Phillies, Aaron Nola.
Yeah, Aaron Nola's
Um,
been bad.
Aaron Nola's been awful, but Zach Wheeler, Cy Young candidate as always. Jesus Luzardo is looking like a Cy Young candidate. I'm just looking at this Dodgers team. I think it will be close. I think they do end up with the best record in the National League. Just imagine, like, Blake Snell coming back fully healthy. He started off the
Yeah.
year strong. Roki Sasaki hasn't lived up to the hype as of right now. Right now, he's on the IL right now.
Yep.
So I just don't really know how to feel about
But that
that. But I
bullpen is
think they do.
unmatched. Nobody matches with the Dodgers bullpen.
I mean, especially the
Nobody.
return of Dusty May, how well he's been, and then of course they had Tanner Scott sitting right there as well. That bullpen is
Kirby Yates
freaking
too.
ridiculous.
Wait for Kirby Yates, man.
All right, I want to start off with Michael with this one. For the next hot take, we're going to stick on the topic of the National League, but we're going to go to the NL East. And I know you got to put Braves bias aside. Shout out to Talking with Tyler. He sent this one in. Mets win the World Series. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, 1984, period. I don't know what else to say about that. They're not going to do that. I mean, no, I mean they absolutely can. I mean, they're a really good team. See, the thing for me this year, like that's different about him is Pete Alonso
Mhm.
is hitting like
Yep.
for average. Like that's nowhere. He's never been anywhere near a really good like hitter for average. He obviously he's had the power his whole career, but the fact that he's doing everything right now at the plate is just lethal when considering how good Lindor's been. Soto will get clicking eventually. I think he's starting to play better right now than he has
Mhm.
earlier this season. Um, I hate the Mets with all my heart.
Yeah.
Amen.
No doubt.
Amen.
But yeah, they're. I mean, it's definitely possible. I just think that the Phillies, Dodgers, and even the Yankees, I feel like are better teams than them. So we'll see.
Hold on.
But they definitely could though.
Very quick, twins. I want to point out something very quick because I know, I'm a Cardinals fan, not National League East, any sort of bias. But I do want to point out, the Mets team last year made the NLCS, and the pitching was the problem with that Mets team.
Yep.
But this season, it's looked fantastic. Clay Holmes is proving why he should be a starter. Huascar
Yeah.
Brosabon has looked. I believe, I don't know if he's a rookie, but this is like his breakout year. He's doing great for the Mets. David Peterson, as well. Kodai Senga is looking like a top 10 pitcher in the National League. So I feel like the Mets are a force to be reckoned with. Do I think they won the World Series? Again, you still got the Dodgers, you still got the Phillies, you got the Yankees. Like, I just, I mean, World Series bound
Yeah,
champion. No.
sure. Here's my thing about it. Like I do as much as I hate the Mets, just like Michael. The Mets are my least favorite team in baseball, by the ways. I will say at some point down the road, I say maybe in the next somewhere down the line in the next 10 years, they're going to win
Yeah.
at least one World Series and maybe two. But right now, there's just a few things. There's a few concerns amongst all the positives that tell me that they're not World Series ready yet. And of course, they can always, tweak these things throughout the season, but it's been a recurring issue, and that's defensive struggles, namely. And you talked about the pitching, and though the pitching's been very well, and the bullpen's starting to get a little hurt right now. I mean, AJ Minter just hit the IL,
Yeah.
but to me,
Well,
I
AJ
think
Minter's been hurt.
well, yeah, I'm just saying for, just throwing that out there. But I think defensive troubles is what's really going to halt the Mets from making any deep run in the postseason. And I think the biggest sign of that I saw was in the Subway Series that took place last weekend. Because, I mean, you had Mark Vientos, I think, that had 2 errors throughout the series. And then there's that one play where Pete Alonso had that terrible throw that allowed the go-ahead
Mhm.
run to score in the or to score the eventual winning run. And then the prominent gold glover, Francisco Lindor, he hasn't really been himself at shortstop. I mean, his bats look really good, but I mean, they don't even have a corner outfield that's playing above average in terms of defensive statistics. And I think in terms of winning a World Series, defense is something you have to have down to a T, and I just don't think the Mets do. So
Hmm.
definitely down the line, but I don't think they take it this
Well,
year.
you also have to
Chase.
remember it's only May. There's plenty of season to be played, and
Exactly.
Steven likes to say this all the time. You don't know a true baseball team till it hits June and July. That's when
Yeah.
teams finally hit their stride and they show their true colors. And we see it all the time in every MLB season that a team has woes at the start of the season and then they shape into perfection at the end of the year. We saw the Braves do it multiple times, most notably 2022 and where the Mets fell apart, the Braves came back and took the division. We saw the Phillies do it the year they went to the World Series. So I expect the Mets to tighten up defensively. Like you said, Jackson, pitching's been phenomenal for New York. Michael, like you said, last year, Pete Alonso was either home run or nothing. Now he's an all around type of guy. And I think the Mets could, when it hits July, August, September, they could be very dangerous. We could easily look at them and say they could win the World Series.
That's fair.
So for this next hot take, sticking on the topic of the World Series, we talked about the National League side, and Chase, you brought up the fact of pitching. There's a team whose pitching has been phenomenal this season, and let's throw it to the American League side. This hot take is from Adam B. Sports. The Seattle Mariners will win the World Series.
Hey,
What are y'all's
listen.
thoughts on that?
Hey, I want to take the lead on this one because the
Go ahead.
last episode I gave a huge shout out to the Seattle Mariners for the
Yeah.
way they are playing ball, and I want to kind of bring up the point I made last episode because I remember like 2, 3 weeks into the season, everybody was thinking this is going to be the same Seattle Mariners team. The potential's there, but they're going to underperform. But now you're looking at a team that's completely shifted perspective, and it's up and down the entire order that they're getting tons of consistency. You got Kyle Riley, of course, my Florida State boy, that's hitting with the most power I think he's had his whole MLB career. And you got veterans out there like J.P. Crawford, he's been a very consistent hitter, very reliable, always getting on base. And of course, Julio Rodriguez, he's still great defensively. He's definitely hitting a lot better than he did last year. But then you got to look at that starting rotation that's been carrying the load for the Mariners in terms of pitching because that's going to be the downfall for the Mariners. Now, I think World Series is crazy. Do they win the postseason? I think so, and I think they could definitely win the division. But that bullpen is atrocious, and that's
Hmm.
what I think is going to keep them out of the World Series. I'm going to go ahead and say they do win the division. Astros are too mediocre to win the division. Athletics, I think they're a sneaky team. I compare them to the Washington Nationals. They're going to be good down the road. I think nobody else in that division could really take the division other than the Mariners, but they're going to run into a team in the postseason that laid down the stretch. Bullpen's not going to be able to support them. I don't see them making the ALCS or anything. So World Series, no. Playoffs, definitely.
Andrew or Michael?
I'll let Michael go.
I think I wouldn't be shocked if they were to win the AL, just because of the fact that I don't like it's. I don't think the AL is very deep. Like I feel like you got New
That's true.
York
Yeah.
by themselves, and then everybody else just kind of there in terms of the
Right.
rest of the playoff field. I don't really love anybody else in that league except for the Yankees and in a
Detroit?
seven. I mean, I don't have the hitting like that rotation's good, but I don't trust that offense in the postseason series. Um, but I mean, I think they could. I mean, hypothetically, if they were to play in division series or championship series against Detroit or New York, I think they could win a series like that. I just don't know if they have enough to win a World Series. But with how the AL, I just isn't as deep as I feel like the NL is at all. I think they could win an AL championship, but I think World Series is a stretch.
Yeah, I think World Series now that AL West division I think is a lot more tight than what I thought it was going to be, and I think people, I mean, yeah, you are talking about Seattle could win the AL West because they are leading it by a game and a half right now. Which again, throughout the season, you don't know what could change, but I don't think the Astros are getting enough credit right now because I think a lot of heat was taken off their backs when Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman were taken off the team. But I mean, to be fair, I mean the pieces that Houston got from Cal Tucker, I think Isaac Paredes and Cam Smith, they've been playing really well this year, and
I love Cam
I
Smith, man.
and I think that those in Seattle and Houston played in a series very recently. I don't know if it was how recently, maybe earlier this week. I can't really remember. But the two duo that they got from Kyle Tucker went like a combined. I think it was like 12 for 30 or something like that. They had like four multi-hit games, and they played really well. And then the Astros bullpen really tore up Seattle in that series. I think it was. I'm trying to remember the statistic I saw, but I think they surrendered just 3 runs throughout like 16 or 17 combined innings in that series using their bullpen. But I mean, like Luis Castillo, he's been really well for Seattle. Aruna Reza hasn't even hit his stride yet with that team. So there's a lot that could happen. But if you're asking me, I think that Houston's going to end up winning that division. That's just me. But no, they're not winning the World Series.
So I think Seattle can win the division again. As you said, it's gonna be the Astros and the Mariners. One thing I like about this Mariners team that I saw from the end of last season, Mariners were one of the hottest teams heading into All-Star break in the American League. But then they took a massive downfall, and that was the reason why Scott Servais got let go in August of 2024. I
Mm-hmm.
love what their new manager Dan Wilson is doing this season.
Yeah, me too.
The problem is with the Mariners. They're not an all-around batting team. They really only hit for high power, which is serviceable at most, in my opinion. You like the highest batting average on that team right now who hits for contact is JP Crawford. Jorge Polanco is looking great. Cal Raleigh looking fantastic. Julio Rodriguez is getting back to a third year or fourth year rise again. And then this
Right.
pitching. You got Logan Gilbert, Brian Wu, and guess who just came back off the IL? George Kirby. George Kirby is a phenomenal pitcher as well. But again, when you have teams like, I think that the Tigers have a better chance at winning the World Series than this Seattle Mariners team does. Um, I favor the Tigers bats right now over like Seattle.
I think
Um,
people's got to pay attention to Cleveland too. I
yeah,
really
you
like
also got to
Cleveland.
pay attention to Cleveland. Like John Kenzie Noel,
Hmm.
phenomenal sophomore year.
Yep.
But I think they compete for their division. I don't think they win the World Series. But we're saying a lot of nice things about Seattle. But I feel like for this next hot take, we got to give some love to. This isn't really a hot take, but he told us for this, our guy Justin Ayers, who was on an episode a couple weeks ago, is a big Tampa Bay Rays fan. And well, he's a Nationals fan, but in this one, he says, say something nice about the Tampa Bay Rays. And I want to start with Chase over here because, he has like an emotional attachment to one of the Rays players.
Okay,
Franco?
so you have an attachment to Wander Franco, Andrew, and he's not a Ray
That's
anymore.
crazy.
But
That's crazy. That's
anyway,
crazy.
I'm talking about
so
Chandler Simpson.
I
I
know.
know.
Andrew just said Wander Franco. But yeah, so if y'all don't know the backstory behind this, we're in a fantasy MLB fantasy league with people from the radio station at Wolfsburg State where they worked out at college. And it was my turn to draft, and we were live. Me and Jackson were live, and I was talking about Chandler Simpson on the live stream because I was seeing him on TikTok about his unbelievable speed in spring training. He
Mhm.
was turning routine ground balls into singles. So I was trying to figure out his name, so I looked him up on the draft board, and I wanted to cue him as a joke, but I didn't realize it was my turn to draft. So instead of cueing him, I drafted him.
Mhm.
Of course, I later dropped Chandler Simpson because I didn't know how long it was going to take him to get caught up to the majors. Funny enough, he got caught up pretty quick, and he has made an instant impact with the Tampa Bay Rays. So my
Yeah.
kind thing is on you, Chandler Simpson. If you want to sum up how he is as a player in one play, look up on YouTube right now Chandler Simpson turning a single into a double. He just hits a little block fly into right field, and right when the ball lands, he's already halfway to second base. That's how
Mhm.
fast this man is. He's no joke, and he doesn't have a lot of power to him. He's a really good contact guy, but I think he can be a guy that can turn into a very, very dangerous player if he can tie up on hitting, because obviously base running is just lethal. So watch out for Chandler Simpson. He's a diamond in the rough.
Andrew?
I mean, I'll say this right now. The Rays are a very gritty team right now. They're kind of building a pretty sizable win streak right now. They just swept the Blue Jays, who just previously swept the Padres. So the Blue Jays are coming into Tampa Bay riding a high. And I think one thing I would say about the Tampa Bay Rays is I think they have a very underrated pitching rotation. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, nothing's perfect about it. They've had some questionable starts, but like Ryan Pepe,
Pepio.
Pepio. Okay, thank you. Ryan Pepio. I think I don't know if it was today's game or last night's game against the Blue Jays, but I mean he went up there and pitched solid 91 innings. Shane or Baez, I think,
That
pitched
Shane
was
Baz.
Friday.
today. Bias
That was
pitched
today.
yesterday. Bias pitched yesterday.
Okay, thank you,
Shane,
thank you.
Shane
Okay,
Baz.
yeah, Shane
Yeah,
Bass,
Shane
because
Bass.
I had my fantasy team, so I was paying close attention to him, and he pitched strong 6 inning performance, and I think and the bats are getting hot for sure. I think they had a 13-0 win today, if I'm not mistaken, to get back to 500. So I mean, the Rays they play with a lot of grit, and I think if that rotation continues to stay positive and the bats get hot, especially when they're at home, because that's an easy ball, that's a very favorable ballpark to whoever's at the plate. And yeah, so I think the
Steinbrenner, yeah.
Rays, they're a team you could keep an eye on for a wild card run. But I mean, I guess that's something nice to say about them.
Michael,
They're
or do you
fun.
want
They're a
me to
fun
go
team to
first?
watch.
This is something nice about the Rays.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I think it's kind of incredible how like no matter who they lose, who they trade away, like they just always put a decent product on the field. You know what I mean? Like I
Hmm.
just don't get. I'm not even like shut to like this year's team really, just the front office in general over there. Like the fact they just find ways to win decently when they don't spend any money at all and trade away people like Tyler Glasnow constantly. I think that's pretty impressive.
And
Yeah, theoretically, they should have like they're due for like a really horrendous season. But like Michael said, they just haven't.
And Michael, I do want to your point. You're kind of talking about the front office and the guys behind the scenes. Can we talk about this whole like controversy with Cash as a manager? Because there is a survey, led. I don't know who did the survey exactly. But they were asking Rays fans like what's like on your wish list for the Rays this upcoming season, and like 80% of the people said to fire Cash. And I think that's very disrespectful. I think he's far from the issue. And I think what he's done with this Rays team, I personally thought the Rays were going to be kind of terrible this year, and he's definitely turned my head because and like you said, Andrew, I think they're a sneaky wild card team, and I just think especially the expectations coming into the season and where they are 50 games into the season, I don't know how you could possibly want Cash gone.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just
so
wanted to throw that out there.
my ray of sunshine for Tampa Bay for this hot take. Sorry, I had to throw in something there. Yeah, Chase, so funny, right? Um, I want to give it to a guy who I believe we had this discussion last I believe first time All-Stars. That was 2 episodes ago. It was
Yeah.
2 episodes ago. Andrew, what are you doing? Anyways,
I
but
didn't like that. That was bad. That was
it was bad. It was
you
bad. All right,
killed
I
you
want to give
killed
it.
my
I want
mood
to give.
actually.
I want to give a shout out to the first baseman, Jonathan Aranda. Jonathan Aranda has
Hmm.
looked fantastic this season. I'm not sure who has him on their fantasy team, but right now he's hitting a 297, 6 homers, 25 RBIs. Brandon Lowe had a down season last season, and I had him on my fantasy team. That's how I know he had a down season last season. But he's picked it up this season. 10 homers, 29 RBIs, hitting his average is a little low, hitting a 238, but he's looked fantastic on the power side of the bat. And then I want to give a shout out to relief pitching. Pete Fairbanks right now, multiple save situations that the Rays put of him, and he's delivered. Right now, 10 saves on the season with the 3-1 record in 23 games played. So that's my highlight for the Rays. And for the final hot take that we have sent in, and this is a great transition into the next topic that we are going to talk about afterwards, the Atlanta Braves. This was sent in by our guest on the show, Mr. Michael Miller, before I called him up saying, "Hey, we need you on the
Oh,
show."
okay, Michael.
So shout out. Michael, would you like to say your hot take?
All
Yes,
right.
let's hear from him.
All right.
The Braves will trade Sean Murphy at the trade deadline.
Hey, you know what? I'm actually going to start this conversation up right
We
now because I kid
Andrew
you
was
not,
just
I
talking. Andrew was just talking about this at church this morning.
yes, absolutely. I was
So,
because we were in a whole conversation about because you're sitting there with Drake Baldwin, who to me is like a reincarnation of Buster Posey, if not potentially better, just because of how he's able to maintain such a high batting average. And I mean, he's the future of this team. I mean, love Sean Murphy, but you got to do something with him. And I think if I'm looking at the Braves right now, and there's already been talks about this right now, and I think so I guess, and I don't know what trade we could put together because I don't know what this other team that I'm about to name might need or what their needs are exactly. But I think throwing in a package with Sean Murphy and some other pieces, of course, could inquire the Braves to go look at Toronto and get Bo Bichette and fill in the shortstop spot. Because here's my thing. I love Nick Allen. I really do like Nick Allen. I mean, he's like a 250 hitter and he's a great defensive guy. I just don't see Nick Allen doing this on a consistent basis. Like, I have a fear that if we stick with Nick Allen to be the main shortstop guy, it's going to be like an Orlando Arcia-esque type situation. Like Orlando had that All-Star season in 23, and then we saw just a rapid decline. I just don't see consistency out of Nick Allen. And I think that's a hole that we probably need to get figured out pretty quickly. And I think Bo Bichette's a guy that's looking to get out of Toronto. And I think Sean Murphy could be a guy that we could package in to maybe Sean Murphy and Nick Allen. I have no idea. But I think trading Sean Murphy is a must if we want to go ahead and be buyers at the trade deadline because we've got a guy in Drake Baldwin already. So,
Um,
yeah,
I,
Bo Bichette,
I
let's make it
do
happen.
I do agree with you, Andrew, in terms of wanting Drake Baldwin to be the main guy. Just because Sean, I mean, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate here because you also have to remember the contract that Sean Murphy's under right
yeah.
now and the way
Yep.
he's performing right now. Are we even gonna get a team to bite on that contract? Now, Sean Murphy obviously had a great first season in Atlanta. Last year was very disappointing. But this year he started off really hot when he made his return from that injury. Then he kind of mellowed out a little bit, still kind of mellowed. Hitting's very mediocre, but biggest thing about Sean Murphy is I think he's not only hit a decline hitting wise, I think he's hit a decline defensively. I think also when you're comparing him to Drake Baldwin and even Travis d'Arnaud last year, I think d'Arnaud was better defensively than Murphy. Drake Baldwin, I think, is better defensively than Murphy. So I think now if you just looking at the full picture of Sean Murphy, he's mediocre at best, and he's not matching the contract that Atlanta originally signed him with. So I think the hardest thing would be trying to convince teams to take the contract as well.
Yeah.
Um, and I just don't know how possible that will be. So I think that might be a little difficult, but if the opportunity's there, I would definitely trade Sean Murphy.
So I want to
I
throw this.
gotta, I guess,
I was gonna say I want to throw this perspective from a non-Braves player or
sure.
non-Braves fan. My bad. But I'm looking at this. I had Sean Murphy on my fantasy team for a little bit. I bid like $60 on him. Again, he's
Yeah, I
had
remember that.
a
That was 100. You bid 100.
I was gonna bid or I was gonna play the card of the contract before Chase said it. How much is the contract right now?
Uh,
Like 6 years, 75, isn't that what it is?
it's
60 or
yeah.
75 million. When you have a young guy like Drake Baldwin, who is phenomenal on the offensive and defensive side of the ball right now, he is a top three candidate for National League Rookie of the Year. I believe
He's the
he's
number
gonna
one
be
candidate right now. He's the
he's
number one candidate right now.
he's gonna be the Atlanta Braves everyday guy. I don't agree right now. I don't agree with a trade away from Nick Allen because I feel like he's like a better version of Zach Short, if that makes sense.
He's not a good hitter at the major league
No,
level.
He's
yeah,
smart defensively. Like
he's
he's
great.
very
He's
smart
fantastic.
defensively.
He's fantastic defensively. I feel like he could be a great platoon guy. Like again, you go and get a guy like Bo Bichette, or you go and get a guy like
Well,
Brandon
yeah,
Lowe. Brandon Lowe, who can play shortstop. He's a shortstop, second base type guy. Who's looking to get out of there's speculations of him getting out of Tampa Bay at the deadline. I feel like would fit great with Atlanta. And again, you still get a guy like Nacho Alvarez in AAA
yeah.
I
that
love Nacho Alvarez, dude. I want to give him another opportunity.
you can bring up. I like that Braves infield farm system. But when you look at the Drake Baldwin situation and Sean Murphy, I feel like the only reason why I feel like the Atlanta Braves would be hesitant about trading him away is the contract
Yep.
Right.
situation. But sticking on the topic of the Atlanta Braves, I know we only have 6 minutes left in the episode, but I want to hear from the Braves fans. Ronald Acuna Jr. is back, and Chase and Andrew Jefferson were at the game.
Oh,
Michael
yeah.
Miller was watching it on TV, live, and first pitch, first at bat back since playing last year, 467 gone. But then Eli White, and then
Hey man,
Manny
hey, that's a
Machado.
whole nother conversation. That's a
Um,
whole nother
so,
conversation.
what are your thoughts on Acuna being back and him being on a straight tear right now?
Why don't we let
Let's hear from
Mike?
Michael.
Let's let
Yeah,
Michael. Yeah.
yeah. Let's hear from Michael.
I think my favorite thing right now is that he looks normal. Like when he
Hmm.
came back in 22, he didn't look the same at all. He never was the same at all in 22 when he came back the first time from his ACL injury.
Yep.
He was never hot at any point in the season, and he didn't have the same energy the whole year either. If you watched him play, he didn't play like the same, like fired up, happy Ronald that we're seeing this weekend and the way he played. So like that's what I'm like so excited about right now is that it looks like he's I mean, he clearly not 100%, but like
No.
definitely a lot closer than he was the first time he came
Mhm.
back. Now in terms of like off days, I know he was supposed to have the day off today, and then of course, like
Yep.
he's always going to say he's going to feel good. You're never going to get him to
Right.
admit that he's not
Yeah.
going to play, but so he may take some days off here and there. But I think like even though we didn't win the series this weekend, the fact that you have your leadoff hitter again and that he looks as close to 100% as he possibly could be at this point is like really, really like my favorite thing so far from this
And
weekend.
I do want to point out, like you said, about how his return, that he looks normal. And you mentioned how in 2022, when he made his first return before he got injured again, of course, he didn't look the same. And I want to compare rehab starts too. Like his rehab start this year versus last year, they weren't the same at all. I remember when Acuna was working on coming back from the injury the first time, his previous injury, he didn't have that good of a rehab. He had pretty mediocre rehab, but we were just concerned that, oh, he's healthy, so he's ready to come back. But this year, he was absolutely destroying it in rehab. His swing looked good. He was making fantastic contact with the ball. So this year, instead of saying, oh, he's healthy, we were saying, oh, he's healthy and he's playing great ball. And that quickly translates to the major league. Now, he has struck out a lot this series, but to
It's
me
an
that's
aggressive
fine.
approach. It's an
Yeah, to
aggressive
me,
approach.
I like that he's swinging at all, and I think
Yeah.
that he's already establishing early that he's not here to take it easy and ease his way back into the roster. He's saying that I'm back and I'm ready to make an instant impact. Like you said, Michael, though he lost his series, Ronald Acuna was a big part of the win Saturday and us almost winning today. And of course, Friday he scored our only run. And I think, and like you said, leadoff spot because we tried different things at leadoff this year, like Verdugo. I like Verdugo, but he did get a little cold. But Acuna is a guy we know for a fact will have in the leadoff spot, and he will stay consistent in that lead spot. He has his whole career.
Yeah, and I will say, y'all brought up the point of again, I bring up 2022 again because he came back from his injury and he played about 50 games, and I don't think he ever got to a 260 average. He only had 4 home runs. The only number that was relatively good for him was he had 16 stolen bases at the time, but only a .716 OPS. But then again, he tore his right ACL again in that Pittsburgh series back in 22. So of course, when you're going off your second ACL tear, you're not going to see him be aggressive on the bases anymore. So that's a version of Cunha that we're going to have to get used to, which I'm completely fine with that. But I mean, yeah, from a fan perspective, it was amazing. I mean, literally, Chase and I, and then a buddy of ours got tickets at 1 a.m. the night before his return. Because as soon as I got that ESPN notification, we knew we had to go see this in person. And I was expecting a home run. We were talking about on the car ride there because he mentioned in an interview prior to the game that he just had a feeling that he was going to go out there and go yard. And he did. I mean, off the first pitch from Nick Pivetta, left him a 96-mile-an-hour fastball down the middle. We were sitting in the outfield about like row 6 or 7, maybe. And I've never seen a ball fly 7 or 8 rows above my head that quick. It was literally, I just sat down. And then I had to stand back up because I mean that thing was torched. So it was a very cool experience. And yeah, even though we didn't win the series, there's a shift in energy, and it's one problem at a time. And then he had that amazing throw out in right field when the ball traveled to the corner of the chop house area, and he just picked it up and torched it to second base, and where Nick Allen had to tag out, or maybe it was Ozzie Albies, I can't remember. But regardless, I'm glad having him back.
Michael.
Yeah, I mean, just say what I said before again. I mean, the fact that I back to like kind of what Chase kind of talked about a second ago, like Verdugo, we had him in the leadoff spot for a while, which worked
Yeah,
out. Okay, I love him in the 6-5 slot. I
Right.
think that's
Yeah.
a really good spot for him, honestly. So I
Absolutely.
think like it works out obviously just for us to have Ronald back in his spot, but I think also pushing Verdugo down is really good for him as well. And then also like defensively, not even just talking about him gunning that guy down on Friday, but
mhm.
like how many times, I mean, Brian Snicker talked about it after the game Friday night too, that there were a lot of situations that game where he probably held guys to singles a
Right.
lot,
Yeah.
because of how fast he was getting to the ball. So having
Very
him in the
true.
outfield is the other huge advantage now, having him back, not just at the plate.
Absolutely.
The Braves fans have something to look forward to, but that is all the time we have for this episode. Michael, thank you so much